Welch. Defendant is being charged with count 1, torture, count 2, harmful device, unlawful possession or use causing personal injury. Today's the date and time for a preliminary examination. Appearances, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Tina Moynihan on behalf of the people, P84692.
And good afternoon, Your Honor. Luther Glenn, P38683, appearing on behalf of Mr. Jonathan Welch.
Well, state your name for the record.
Jonathan Welch.
All right, you may be seated. First order of business, there was a motion, prosecutor filed. I'm now going to allow legal arguments to prosecute the motion. Prosecute.
Thank you, Judge. The people are requesting the court allow statements taken by Detective Calvin Washington during a conversation with the complainant, Delia Frazier, to be admitted in the court pursuant to Michigan Rule of Evidence 804(b)(6) on the basis that it is the people's position that due to the defendant's action, Ms. Delia Frazier is no longer present. She is now deceased. We received a police report from Harper Woods, which indicated that I believe on or around July 10th of this year, Harper Woods responded to the location of the defendant's mother's home and found that Delia Frazier, as well as his stepfather, were deceased inside of the home, and that his mother had run across the street to a neighbor seeking assistance, stating that her son was inside of the house stabbing everybody, and then she later succumbed to her injuries as well. Based upon the full written motion I provided to the court, I believe that the statements that were taken by Detective Washington should be admitted at this time.
Just briefly, Your Honor, I understand the allegations in this matter. However, we still are at the probable cause stage. And I would object to those statements being used for the constitutional violation and violation of Sixth Amendment confrontation.
Judge, brief response.
Yes.
With regards to the confrontation clause, the Michigan Supreme Court has already held people versus only that the defendant's right to confrontation does not attach on preliminary examination, and therefore at this time, admitting the statement would not violate Mr. Welch's right to confrontation.
We're having read the motion, we'll arguments. The prior statement of deceit will be allowed in the preliminary. You may call your first witness.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, people would call Detective Calvin Washington.
Jason Calvin,
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
Yes. Your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. Could you please state your name for the record?
Detective Calvin Washington.
And Detective Washington, with whom are you employed?
Detroit Police Department.
And how long have you been employed with the Detroit Police Department?
20 years and 7 months.
And I'm going to take you back to a date of June 2nd, 2022. Did you become aware of an incident that took place at the 13,000 Kilbourne Avenue address in the city of Detroit, County of Wayne on that date?
Yes, ma'am.
And how is it that you became aware of that date and location?
Assisting the officer in charge of this case. Also,
And what was the nature of your assistance in this matter?
took a statement from a young lady over the phone.
Do you recall that individual's name?
No, ma'am.
Did you make a report in this case?
I I did not make the report.
Did you have an opportunity to review the investigator's report that was submitted in conjunction with Officer Wolf?
No, ma'am.
When you spoke with the individual, what did you do from there?
Took a written statement over the phone, and I turned that information, the statement over to the officer in charge of the case.
And you made a written statement
Yes, ma'am.
from what you had a conversation over the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you were to see that written statement that you provided to Officer Walton, would that refresh your recollection as to the name of the individual you spoke with?
Yes, ma'am.
May I approach it?
Yes.
Detective Washington, I've handed you a 6-page document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the statement that you wrote pursuant to the phone conversation that you had?
Yes, ma'am.
If you could take a moment and review that and let me know when you are completed. And has your memory been refreshed as to the name of the individual that you spoke with?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was her name?
One second. I'm sorry. Continue.
Thank you, Judge. And is your memory refreshed as to the name of the individual that you spoke with?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is her name?
Zayaria Frazier.
And during your conversation with Ms. Frazier, did she give you a name of an individual with whom she was concerned about?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that name?
I can refer to my statement.
If that will refresh your recollection.
Yes. Jonathan Welch.
And did she give you any indication of how she knew Mr. Welch?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was her response to that?
Father of her child.
And did you ask her about what happened on June 2nd of 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did she indicate to you happened? We'll break this down step by step.
I can refer to my.
If it'll refresh your recollection, just please don't read from the report.
Said she was asleep and she was awakened by questioning her about her cell phone. Suspected that she may have been talking to someone else.
And did she indicate if anything happened after the questioning about her cell phone? And what was that next incident?
She said she was punched in the face. She was physically attacked.
And did she give you any indication of where she was struck specifically?
Her face.
And what happened after she was struck in the face by Mr. Welch?
She said she was pulled from the bed, ordered by her hearing, and continued to assault her and question how what she decided to do. So
And during your conversation with her, did she indicate whether this was in the bedroom or somewhere else in the home?
initially in the bedroom.
And did she give you any indication of when locations changed? And when did that happen?
When she heard the child screaming, the small child that they had in common, the child She was crying. She got up to tend to the child.
And what happened when she got up to tend to the child?
She stated that Mr. Welch continued to question her about the incident with the phone.
And so what happened during this questioning, if anything?
He continued to assault her, and as she put the child down, she said the assault started to continue the questioning as to what was in the phone. And she would not give him the code to the phone to look into the phone, so he continued to punch her and assault.
And is there a point in time in the conversation that she indicated the assault changed from the punching to something different?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the nature of that portion of the incident?
Call conversation. They said she went to the living room and Welch continued to threaten her. He at some point said, if you're not gonna talk, I'm gonna make you talk. And we went to gather several, she said, cord, spatula, a power tool, some power tools to kind of coerce her. If you don't tell me, then there are gonna be repercussions. You don't tell the truth.
And did she ever indicate if these items that Mr. Welch went to retrieve were ever used on her?
Yes.
Let's start with the extension cord. What was with regards to that item that he retrieved? What did he do?
She was tied up from her statement. She was tied, bound with that extension cord.
And what happened after she was bound with the extension cord?
Continued to be assaulted, punched her in the face, the body, the legs. And well, she said that at some point he wrapped the cord around her neck.
And did she describe for you what happened when the cord was wrapped around her neck?
She was gasping for air. And he would squeeze the cord just enough for her to gain a little breath, and then he would release the cord so she could breathe.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, Mr. Welch had the extension cord wrapped around her neck and applied pressure, restricting her breathing,
Yes.
and then would release it at some point.
Yes.
And did she indicate if this was a one-time thing or did this happen multiple times?
Continue.
And what happens after the incident with the extension cord? What happens next?
Calling from her statement, she said that he went after the extension cord. He hit her several more times, and she was in the living room at this time in a chair. And while she was in the living room with the chair, he went, picked up the spatula, heated it up on the stove, and told her, "You're still not going to tell me." Then
And at some point, does Mr. Welch in fact use the spatula on her?
according to her statement, yes.
And does she describe for you what happened at that point?
Walked to the kitchen with the spatula, placed it on the stove, heated the spatula, walked back to the living room where she was sitting in the chair, and he started to burn her legs.
And what happens next after this?
Called her statement, continued to question her about the phone. First statement, I believe she said, "If you don't tell me, it's going to continue all night." And her phone was taken from her, but he had the phone, so she couldn't call for help. I recall she said at some point the child started crying again. She tended to the child. Mr. Welch let up off her for that moment, and she set the child, after she got the child calm, she ran out of the house.
And prior to Ms. Fraser running out of the house, do you recall anything with regards to gasoline?
Yes, she did state that.
And what was her report with regards to gasoline?
during the questioning, her statement, she stated that Mr. Walsh poured gasoline on her body and she was burned, in her private area from the gasoline. Put her in the bathtub to wash the gasoline.
And you said private area, could you be a little bit more descriptive
Her
of the
vagina.
report? Okay.
Vagina.
And do you recall where in the sequence of events this happened?
That was prior to her running out. I'm sorry, because it was a lot. That statement was pretty lengthy. It's coming back to me as I remember.
And if you need a moment to review the report to be able to fully answer the question, you may take a moment.
So that gasoline has happened after she was burned.
And so after gasoline was poured on Ms. Frazier, you stated that she was taken to the bathroom.
Yes,
And what happened when she was in the bathroom?
she said the cord was still wrapped around her neck. It was loose. She got in the tub, started to wash off the water, and then she said, "Continue to question her again. What's in the phone?" You know, and she still wouldn't. I think at that point, if I recall her statement, she said she had initially did say, "Okay, I'll tell you. Just stop doing it."
And want to back up briefly, you said that Mr. Welch had gone and retrieved the extension cord, the spatula, and I believe power tools. Did that ever come into play in Ms. Frazier's statement?
Yes.
And what was her statement with regards to the power?
She said they were just sitting around on the floor. She said that she didn't know why they were like, she said they were like set out in sequential order, like some sort of order. That's just how she described it to me. I don't know what simply was meant by that.
And did she give you any description of what was on the floor?
Just miscellaneous power tools like the drill, saw, circle saw, things of that nature.
And were you able to obtain from Ms. Frazier around what time this all started?
Yes, ma'am.
And to the best of your recollection, when was that?
Between 3 a.m. and 7 that morning.
So was that between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., was that the full duration of the altercation?
Yes, according to her.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you stated that Ms. Frazier indicated she was able to run out of the house.
Yes, ma'am.
And did she tell you where she went?
She said she knocked on several doors nearby for help, and she went to a next door neighbor's house.
And was she admitted into that house?
Yes, ma'am.
And did anything else happen when she was inside of that home?
According to her statement, yes.
And what was it that happened when she was inside of the home?
Mr. Welch went next door, knocked on the door, tried to get her to come out. She refused to come out. And she stated that she told the homeowners to call for help.
And at that point, what happens next?
At some point, her statement, she said that a while had passed, maybe a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Mr. Welch continued to try to tell her it's going to be okay, just come out. You know, it's not, it's not that serious. Don't do this to me. We can work this out. And she refused to listen and come out. And at that point, the door was kicked.
And did she describe for you how the door was kicked in?
The front door was kicked.
And was she able to indicate to you who kicked in the front door?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was that?
Mr. Welch.
And once Mr. Welch kicked in the front door of this neighbor's house, what happened?
Chased her through the neighbors downstairs, through the kitchen.
Did she indicate if anything else continued to happen with regards to any physical assault?
Not that I recall. He pulled her out of the house.
Okay. And was she able to describe for you how she was pulled out of the house?
Grabbed her.
And then at any point did Ms. Frazier indicate to you that this was something she wanted to have happen?
No.
I don't think I have any other questions.
Cross.
All right, good afternoon, sir. Now, I want to just go over some of the things that you talked about that you had, the notes that you had taken after you had spoken with Ms. Frazier. Now, was this statement recorded?
No, sir.
How many times did you talk to her?
Just this once that the statement was taken.
Did you set up any other time for her to come and to review the notes that you have written down to see if they were accurate?
No, sir.
So according to your information and belief, she hasn't read or didn't read anything you wrote down.
That's correct.
Do you know how many people will? Did she indicate whether or not she's sustaining injuries from being burned with the statue?
Yes, sir.
And what injuries did she have?
What jurisdiction she had, burns.
And to your knowledge, did the police arrive at the scene?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Not to your knowledge. All right, oh, there you are.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
Also, you may step down. Next witness.
Your Honor, this time people will be calling Tanis Terrell. I'm sorry. Yes, TENNIS. Lastly, TERRELLL.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? May I have a seat?
Your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. Could you please state your name for the record? And Ms. Terrell, I'm going to take you back to June the 2nd of 2022. Are you familiar with the address of 13020 Kilbourne Avenue in the city of Detroit County?
Yeah.
And what's that location? What is that location?
Oh, that's fine.
That's your. And are you also familiar with an individual by the name of Jonathan Welch? Yeah. And how is it that you know Mr. Welch? And have you seen him on previous occasions? Yeah. And if you were to see him again, would you recognize? Yeah. Do you see anybody in the courtroom sitting today that you recognize as Jonathan Welch? Yeah. Where do you see him seated and what is he wearing? Your Honor, I ask that the record reflect that the witness is the defendant.
Record reflect that identification.
Thank you, Judge. And With regards to June 2nd of 2022, did you ever give Mr. Welch permission to enter your home?
No.
And prior to June of 2022, did you ever give Mr. Welch permission to enter your home?
No.
At some point on June 2nd, did you receive information that something had happened at your home?
Yes.
When you arrived at your home, did you observe anything that was not what you left your home in the same conditions earlier that day?
Yes.
And what did you observe?
My door, it was kicked in, and, my furniture was flipped around, and the stuff that was in the kitchen, like the food stuff, it was thrown on the floor, my refrigerator was like closed.
So let's start with, you indicated the door was kicked in.
Yes,
Which door was this?
my front.
And did you notice anything abnormal other than just that the door was open?
First time I walked in, I seen where the whole, it was like, the hinges part was like, oh, everything was there.
And so you indicated the hinges to like where the door is connected to the frame.
Yes,
And so were you able to close the door? And since that time, have you had the door repaired?
yes.
And to the best of your recollection, what was the cost of the repairs for that?
That's what I'm asking about.
And so you indicated that there was some furniture moved inside of the home. What room, when you first enter the home, do we see?
The living room,
The living room, okay. And so what furniture was moved in your living room?
my couch.
The couch?
Mhm.
And so prior to you leaving on June 2nd, how was your couch situated?
The back part of the couch was leaning towards the window, that's like in front of the house,
Okay.
and then leaning back towards that. My couch, it was leaned up towards the window in front of the house, and it was pushed back towards the window.
So your couch, was it up against like the window sill?
Yes,
And when you returned home, how was the couch?
the couch, it was not near the window, sill. It was like slanted, like in the middle of the living.
And then you indicated that there were some things disturbed in your kitchen.
Yes.
And what was it that was disturbed in the kitchen?
It was like like food, like the jar of spaghetti that was thrown on the floor. I can't really remember what else was on the floor. And then the refrigerator is normally, the back is pushed up against the wall of the kitchen. And it was just turned all the way around, the front part was in front of the stove.
Okay, so would it be similar to saying that the doors of the refrigerator were facing how the oven door would have opened?
Yes.
And none of this was how you left your house that morning?
No.
I have no further questions for this.
Ross,
What time did you return to your home?
Maybe about 7:30, 7:40, I just got to work.
7:30, 7:40, what, 11 p.m.?
And
AM. And was anyone in your house when you got there?
my kids,
Okay. How many children do you have? Well, let me ask you, how many children were in the house?
3,
Anyone else?
no.
Any surveillance cameras, anything?
I do, but they don't work.
Do you know whether or not any of the children inside of the house taped or recorded anything that was going on while you were there? You're not aware, or you don't?
No, I don't know.
Now, the home that you live in, do you own this home, or are you renting, or do you own?
I'm renting.
Whatever, thank you.
No, you're right.
ma'am, you may step down.
Judge, at this time, we'll be calling Denise Terrell. Tenn. Tennis, and then the daughter is Denise.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Madam Speaker.
Let me see that. And ladies, please keep your voice up, okay?
Cool.
Your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Could you state your name for the record? Denise Terrell. Okay, Ms. Terrell, you're very soft-spoken. I want you to yell at me as if you were outside, okay? Okay. Thank you. And so I'm gonna take you back to June 2nd of 2022. Were you at an address of 13020 Kilbourne Avenue in the city of Detroit, County of Wayne?
Yes, I would.
And what is that location?
I would. Like a house?
Okay. And is that a house that you live in?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And so did something happen on June 2nd that brings you to court today?
Yes, it is.
And around what time did this incident occur?
Somewhere in that area.
And would this be between 7 and 7:20 in the morning or in the evening?
In the morning.
And what is the first thing that you recall happening?
First thing that happened was banging on the door.
And were you able to determine who was on the other side of the door?
No, it was not. So,
So did you open the door?
mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, it is.
And so who did you observe on the other side of the door?
It was the lady on the next, that stayed next door. I don't know her name. It was like,
But you recognize her as somebody that lived next door to you? And that's a yes.
oh, right there.
And so what happened once you opened the door?
Now open. I'm sorry, okay. She was banging on the door saying, help me, he's trying to kill me. And I opened it. And I seen it was her. And she had no clothes on or none of that. She was bloody, it was all over her, and all types of.
So let me stop you there. You indicated that she made a statement before you opened the door.
Mhm.
What, and can you restate what you had heard?
The court reporter is sitting right next to you, she's typing every word you say, so if you say, she can't type that, so you have to say yes or no. And if you don't understand the question, ask me to say the question. Continue.
Thank you, Judge. And so you had heard this individual on the other side of the door say something. What did you hear her say?
I heard her say, help me, he's trying to kill me.
And then you gave a description of what you observed once you opened the door. And so let's start with the first thing. Well, you said she had no clothes on?
She had no clothes on.
And then did you see any injuries to her?
Yes, I seen a couple of bruises and marks on her.
Okay. And then you indicated that she was bloody?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a habit that we all have. I just need you to make sure that you really focus on saying yes or no, okay? And so once you made these observations, what did you do?
I gave her a blanket and I was on the line.
And did you let this individual inside of your home?
I let her inside.
Yes.
And I said she come sit down to the police.
Okay, so you admitted her into the home? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And then you provided a blanket and called 911.
Yes, I did.
And did anything else happen prior to police arriving?
Yes, it is.
And what is it that happened first?
He kicked my door down.
And you said he, who are you referring to?
Jonathan.
You know, my first name is Jonathan.
Well, it was my next door neighbor. He made that statement before.
Okay,
I didn't know his name or that at all. I didn't know. Like,
okay. Have you seen the individual who lived next door to you prior to June second?
if I've seen him a couple times, like, him cutting his grass or going outside, or sitting outside, something like that. But I like, never had no contact.
Okay. Do you see the individual that you recognize to be your neighbor sitting in the courtroom today? And where is he seated? What is something he's wearing?
Oh, right.
And I would ask the driver if I could witnesses identify the defendant.
Record will reflect identification.
And can you describe what happened when your door was kicked in?
When he had kicked down my door, he ran. Like, I ran outside. My sister ran in the basement. And when I ran outside, I heard a lot of, like, when I was outside, I was still close to the house, I could hear a lot.
Okay.
And it was like a lot of banging and like a lot of noises going on in the house.
All right, and
Non-prosecuted stop.
thank you, Judge. You indicated that you ran outside. And is that a yes?
Yeah.
And so when you ran outside, is there a second door that you used?
Yes, the side door, like, I ran, I just. Front door, like, I ran through the living room, inside the kitchen, downstairs, like, go towards the basement a little bit. And there's a door right there, and I ran out that door.
Okay. And so, once you ran outside, were you able to see anything that was going on inside the house?
No,
And you indicated that you heard some things though. What was it that you heard?
I got a bang and I heard a little bit of yelling, but I can't really make it out because I'm outside. I can't really make out the yelling. But I did hear like a lot of banging and a lot of like crashing, glass breaking, or like that type of stuff.
And then did police eventually arrive?
Yes, it did. I thought the police again before it happened.
Okay, so it took a couple times to get them to the location, but they did eventually arrive. Is that a yes?
Yes, it did.
I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
All right, good afternoon, ma'am. I just want to ask you a couple of questions that you indicated or talked about this afternoon, all right? Now, when you said that you heard banging on the door and you opened the door and you saw a person that you recognized from next door, how long have you known her?
I don't know.
How long have you known of?
I was like, I was there for probably 2 years. 3 years.
While this was going on at the front door, anybody else inside of the house?
Yeah.
Who?
My older sister, Aisha, and my little sister.
Okay, were they in the living room with you or some other place in the house?
They were in the living room.
Okay, so all three of you in the living room?
Mhm.
Yes. All right, any of them by the door where you were?
Yeah.
Okay, how close were they to you?
Like the door, you right here, and I'm right there. It's like basically on my side by side, it's like behind me.
Okay, all right, so within arm's length of each other, you reach out, touch each other?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, there came a point in time when you let this young lady in and you let her sit on the couch, right? All right, you gave her a blanket.
Yes, I can.
Okay, now when she said she didn't have any clothes on, was she nude?
Yes, you can.
Okay, you said you saw blood. Where did you see the blood?
Like, every time I was so fast, my grandson.
Could you see what
Sorry.
that?
Everything was happening so fast. This last thing you said.
Could you tell if she was still bleeding or if that was just blood on her body?
I could feel that it was blood on her body. She still bleeding.
Okay, and she was bleeding where? Now, once the young lady came into the house, you said they came at one time. Well, let me ask you this. When she came to the house, did you close the front door?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Now, do you have a screen door or a glass door and then a regular wooden door? Or iron door? You have two?
Yes, I will.
All right. Did you close the hard door or just the screen door?
Yes, no, I do. The screen door, it really don't close, it'll swing back up.
Okay, so when you talk about the door, you're talking about the hard wood door.
Yes, it was.
Okay, and was that just closed or was it locked?
It was locked.
And when the door was kicked in, where exactly in the living room were you?
I was still standing by the door, because I was walking back, then I heard.
When you say when you were walking back to where?
I was walking back inside the living room, so I was still by the door a little bit. Not on my way walking back, I heard the door. I heard the door.
Now you heard the door kicked in. Did you see anyone kick the door in? Or anyone come through the door after it was kicked in?
Yes, I did.
Right,
I
you-
looked, and I think,
Okay, when you said you turned and you looked, where were you when you turned?
in the living room.
Okay, where?
Like, it was like, soon as I
From
was
me to
close,
you, or we close it?
like, right here.
Okay, so, okay, like 3 feet away, real close?
Yeah.
And how long had the young lady been inside the house before the door was kicked?
Not long,
Okay, how long is not long?
like, minute, 2 minutes, like.
A minute?
Like that. Like, not,
Okay, instantly in 2 minutes, that's a wide range.
like, as soon as I let her in, and I closed and locked the door, that's when it gets them.
Was there any banging or hollering or yelling before the door was kicked in
Yeah,
that you heard?
yeah, that's how I had opened my door, I heard her say.
Oh, no, no, I'm talking about when she was inside, and you closed the door again behind
Oh,
and
no,
locked it. Was there any banging or yelling outside before the door was kicked in?
Nope.
So the door was just kicked in?
Yep.
Now, you said at that point in time, you ran, right?
Yeah.
And I believe you said you ran through the living room, through the kitchen, and down some stairs outside to the side door, right? Anybody running with you at that time?
Yeah.
Who?
my sister and.
You said your sister, which one?
My older sister, 'cause my baby sister, she's one, she can't be one.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right, so, okay, now, your baby sister was where? when this was going on?
She was looking at the living room.
She was in another room?
No, she was looking at the living room, we was holding. My
Oh,
other
you were
sister was
holding her.
Yeah,
Who was holding her?
my other sister, Paris.
And when you ran out the side door, your sister ran out the side door as well?
No,
No?
she ran in the kitchen.
Sure, okay. So the stairs that go by the side door also are the stairs that go to the basement?
Yeah, it's like, the side door is, the stair that moves down like that.
Okay,
Then when she ran down, there's a closet, you got a couple rooms in the kitchen, she ran in the closet.
okay, so she ran downstairs, you ran outside.
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
And while you were outside, I believe you were asked whether or not you could see anything going on inside. Could you?
No.
How long was it before the police arrived?
When I ran outside, when I was,
For me, when you ran outside?
they probably arrived like 3 minutes.
3 minutes, real?
Like, I don't know how long they've been there, because I thought it was somebody else walking around with a gun, so I don't know how long they was there.
Okay, that's fine. You don't know, you don't know. That's all I got. Okay.
Just one brief question. Ms. Terrell, did you ever give the man that you recognize to be your neighbor permission to come in here?
No, I did not.
No further questions, right?
Step down, man. The next witness.
Judge, if I could take a brief moment to consult with my officer in charge out in the hallway.
Prosecutor, you can make, prosecutor, make a motion to allow the officer in charge. to report. Officer to allow the-
Understood, Judge. Thank you. Judge, the people would like to be able to recall Detective Calvin Washington. Thank you, Judge.
Officer Stonehill.
Thank you, Judge. Detective Washington, I'm going to take you back to your conversation that you had with Ms. Delia Frazier. And during your conversation, did she indicate to you anything with regards to a sexual assault?
Yes,
And what, based on your recollection, was the details about that?
based on my recollection, it's not like doing the assault, excuse me. That there was a metal pole that was used to get towards her. And she stated it was trying to stick a metal pole.
And was there any other discussion of a sexual assault, or was that it?
That's all I can recall in her statement.
And when you wrote her statement, were you writing everything that she indicated to you?
Yes, ma'am.
If you were to review the report, would it refresh your recollection if there was anything else noted with regards to the sexual assault?
Yes.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Detective Washington, is that the same witness statement that you were reviewing earlier when you were testifying this morning?
Yes. Ma'am. Yes. Ma'am.
Take a moment to review it and send them later. And did this creature ever give you any indication of any further allegations of sexual assault?
Yes.
And could you please describe that report?
That she was initially awakened at some point by sex.
And did she describe to you the nature of the sex that she was having? Or that Mr. Walsh was having with her at that point?
No, ma'am.
And did she ever mention a belt being used?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you describe to the court that portion of the incident?
While the spatula was being heated on the stove, she did state in her statement that she was also whipped.
And do you recall her making any report of statements that Mr. Welsh made at the point that the belt was going to be used? Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ross.
And did Ms. Frazier indicate when the sexual act transformed from being a sex act to being questioned or interrogated about her cell phone?
This was prior to the question itself.
Okay, no, that's my point. How long was the sex act before the inquisition or the inquiry into the cell phone? How much time?
That wasn't stated, sir. I'm not sure.
So you don't know it was an hour or anything like that?
No, sir.
At this point in time, was Ms. Frazier, Mr. Wilson, was it residing there?
My knowledge, stated in this thing.
Okay, when I say residing together, were they also sleeping together? Did she give you that indication?
He didn't go into that detail, sir.
Okay, so you don't know if they slept together at that time? When she was, okay, let me withdraw that question. When she was awake at that night, did she indicate whether or not she had went to sleep with Mr. Welch in bed with?
That wasn't, no, she didn't, sir.
She said she was awakened by the sexual act. Did she indicate that she was surprised that Mr. Welch was in the bed with her?
No, sir.
No further question.
Redirect.
When Ms. Frazier indicated that she had been awoken to the defendant having sex with her, did she ever indicate to you that she had given consent to wake up to sex being had with her?
That was not indicated.
You step down.
And Judge, if people have no further witnesses, we can look at my numbers.
I'm sorry. Any witnesses on behalf of the defense?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay, argument.
Judge, I believe based on the testimony of Detective Washington, he indicated based on a conversation that he had with Ms. Frazier that there was a point where Ms. Frazier was awoken to the defendant having sex with her, that she then was questioned about the contents of her phone and a belief that Ms. Frazier was cheating on Mr. Welch. From there, she was struck several times. And then she went into the living room where the assault continued. She was strangled with an extension cord. She was also subject to having gasoline poured on her. She was taken to the bathroom where she was continued to be choked with an extension cord. She was also burned by a metal spatula by Mr. Welch. And then she had also been struck with a belt at some point during this altercation. Ms. Frazier was then able to run out of the house and ran to a next door neighbor where Denise Terrell had indicated that she let Ms. Frazier in. She heard Ms. Frazier on the outside of the door screaming, help me, he's gonna kill me. So she let Ms. Frazier in. She saw that Ms. Frazier was completely naked. She had no clothes. She was bloodied. She had several injuries, and she described some bruising and some, I believe, some marks. And so Ms. Frazier was allowed into the home and given a blanket. Denise Terrell testified that she had when she had closed the door, there was a few moments, but not a real long time, that Mr. Welch busts down the front door, comes in, she runs out the back, and she hears further altercation, though we don't know what exactly happened inside of the home. We also had Kenneth Terrell, who testified that she's the homeowner or rents the property, and that she never gave Mr. Welch permission to be inside of her home. And Steve Terrell also indicated that she never gave Mr. Welch permission to be inside of the home. Kenneth Terrell also testified that the damage to the front door was about $900. And so I believe that based on the testimony, that the charges within the information are a question of fact for a trial effect.
Defense.
With respect to, it would be count number 4. That's the criminal sexual conduct, 3rd degree force or coercion. According to the testimony on this record, it was that the force and coercion or the hitting, the assaulting came after sex was done. And there's no indication on this record that Mr. Welch used any type of force or coercion to perpetuate or to carry out a sexual act. There's nothing on this record to indicate that at that point in time, there was anything wrong or anything hostile between herself and Mr. Welch. Now, with respect to the other charges, one is a question of fact or a trier of fact. Count two, question of fact or trier of fact. Count three, question of fact or trier of fact. Count five, again, there's nothing here that would indicate that there was any type of force or coercion used involving any of the sexual penetration. And there's nothing on this record that indicate that Ms. Frazier said, stop, I don't want sex. They had been living together. They have this type of relationship where they were living together. So I would object to bind over on count five. Count six, the GBA strangulation question of fact. Count seven, factual question of fact. Gasoline, 8, question of fact. With respect to count 9, felonious assault with a belt, I would object to a characterization that a belt is a dangerous weapon. I'm saying that there was an injury in here, but that is not a dangerous weapon within the meaning of the felonious assault statute. So I would object to that.
Madam Prosecutor, with additional comment time, please hone your arguments on count 4, 5, and 9.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you. So with regards to count 4, the testimony was that Ms. Frazier was asleep. So she could not have given consent to be able to proceed forward in that sexual act. Just because the parties were in a dating relationship does not mean that there is a blanket general line of consent. And if she's asleep, she cannot consent and proceed forward. She said that she was awoken by Mr. Welch having sex with her. So in order to perpetuate sexual activity, there had to have been some force if she was not able to consent to that act moving forward. With regards to count 5, the testimony was that she was being physically assaulted, and then at some point Mr. Welch attempted to stick a pole into her vagina, and that is with regards to the count 5. That testimony alone would be sufficient for a question of fact for a trier of fact. With regards to count 9, I believe that the whether or not a belt is a dangerous weapon is something that the jury should be able to decide and determine based upon the instructions that they're given. Because depending on how the belt is used, it could be able to provide serious injury or bodily harm moving forward. Finally,
Well, just in your argument, use the belt as it was described by the officer in a whipping fashion. So that is what the testimony is. So it's not about, we don't have to use conjecture or try to figure out how the belt was used fashion. It was used in a whipping fashion, according to the officer reading recollection statements.
yes, Your Honor. And so based on her the statement that she was struck several times with the belt, I think that the injuries that could have been sustained from that would be able to have a jury determine whether or not they believe that that could have been a dangerous weapon. And it's not just being used in this normal fashion of an article of clothing, it's now being used as a weapon against an individual. And then finally, Judge, with regards to both counts 4 and counts 5, the jury is instructed that the complainant need not resist, and so therefore that portion of the defendant's argument, I believe, is non-existent.
We haven't heard the testimony of witnesses, neighbors, as well as the officer twice, and haven't heard arguments from the prosecutor as well as offense. Court finds that felony offense is charged in all counts, that the prosecution has, satisfied the element that a probable cause does exist, and the felony offense is charged with commit the city of Detroit. Therefore, the defendant will be bound over on all counts to Wayne County Circuit Court for further proceedings. The arraignment of the information will be August 29th. Bond will continue.
Thank you very much, Judge.
Custody order.
The client wants to talk to you downstairs.
No. Yeah, wasn't sure.
It's okay.